Hey, how are you? Matt Heisler here, Vanderbilt Properties. And one of my team members had a couple of customers who were looking at some land, and it reminded me that it would probably be worthwhile for those who follow my channel and are interested in investing in land to get some information out there about buying land. No surprise, I'm probably going to tell you that you need to be more careful than you should, as I'm a careful person and land is very complicated. So it is near Thanksgiving, so I did title this one Don't Be a Turkey, and we're going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that I usually see when people either try to buy land or they buy land. So unfortunately, a lot of times I find out about these mistakes afterwards. So a little bit of an overview. People get really excited about land, and why shouldn't they, right? Like, it's an exciting purchase. It's full of possibilities. The idea of building something, either a house for yourself or a business, it's very exciting stuff, right? But, okay, the easy to build land in most of Massachusetts has been bought. So what's left is usually pretty tricky. So you just need to start with that in the beginning, that a lot of the easy land is already gone and what's left is not so easy. There's a reason most of the time certain parcels of land haven't been built on, and it's your job as the consumer to figure out what that reason is. So, and we're going to jump in and look at my top 5 mistakes that people usually make. So, but, again, buying land, like buying a house, right? There's a lot of checks and balances on buying a house. So, although we try to make sure as much as possible that you're well educated in it, with land, there are far fewer checks. There isn't going to be a home inspection because it's dirt, right? There's nothing there. And if you go down to the town hall and say, can I build on this land? They aren't going to give you a definitive answer. They're going to tell you you need to put together a plan and submit it to the town, and then they'll tell you. So it's not easy to get answers about land, which makes it buyer beware, caveat emptor, purchases in all of residential real estate, especially in Massachusetts. So for those who don't know, I am Matt Heisler. I am the broker owner of Vanderbilt Properties here in Massachusetts. I do videos like these because after 22 years of selling real estate, I decided to share what I know about real estate with as many people who are interested in watching it as possible. I am not an attorney, and this isn't legal advice. Frankly, land is so complicated that I couldn't possibly do a video that was short enough that anyone would watch it. So there are just way too many options. I don't even go into them. I may end up doing a whole series on these videos, but right now, this is just the top 5 mistakes. And I'm not a lender either, but while I'm talking about it, you should know that if you intend to buy land, it's hard to get a lot of leverage on it. Most banks will want you to put 30, 35, 40, even 50% down. That's not weird for a land purchase, so you should know that that's coming. Okay, number 1 mistake I see, they trust the seller. Okay, it is not weird for a seller to have land in their family for multiple generations. They know everything there is to know about this land. They've walked it. They've been down to the town halls several times over multiple decades. They know a lot about this land, but they don't have to tell you everything. A lot of the stuff that they may know about the land predates when we would actually keep records of that stuff. So they may know, for example, that the lot doesn't perk, and you need a perk test to get a Title V, to get a septic system on there. They may know it doesn't do that. They may know that it's mostly wet. They may know that there are endangered birds on it. They may know a whole bunch of stuff about that land that isn't going to be on that listing. And simply asking the agent, who only knows what the seller told them, right? The seller has no desire to tell the agents everything. I know everyone thinks the listing agent must know everything, but believe it or not, our sellers are very good at excluding material information from us when they wish to. And in land, they often wish to. Okay? So you should know that the listing agent may not know anything. You should expect that the seller is not telling you everything. Okay? And you should assume that there's a reason that they are selling and not taking advantage of the land doing whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to build a house on that land, why aren't they building a house? Isn't it a good investment if they build a house? And the answer is yes, it would be a good investment for them to build a house. So why aren't they doing it? Right? So these are the things that we need to figure out. Okay, mistake number 2. Not doing the basic homework. Okay, I see this all the time. I see people buy land and I take one look at it and I'm like, they didn't look at it. Okay, so these are the simplest things that you can check. Okay, they're available on all town maps in Massachusetts for any lot that's available for sale that isn't being subdivided, of course. You want to make sure that it has frontage. Now, frontage is how many feet it has on a public road. Why do you want to check frontage? If it doesn't have enough feet on a public road, according to the zoning, then you can't build on it. There are a lot of landlocked parcels that every once in a while someone will try to sell to someone else. But if it's landlocked, which means that there is no frontage, you really can't do anything with it other than visit, okay? Which isn't what you want, okay? You want to check the zoning district. Whatever it is that you want to do there, you need to make sure that the zoning will permit it, okay? And you need to look to see what other zones might be around. And if it abuts a town line, you want to check the other town also to make sure you understand what's going on in that particular area. You want to check for either visible or marked wetlands. A lot of towns have GIS maps that have wetlands on them, and it is relatively easy to search anything that has been tagged as wetlands. But there are a lot of lands that haven't been tagged yet, so just because it doesn't look like it has wetlands on a map doesn't mean it doesn't have wetlands. Okay? You also want to check for visible rock outcroppings. If this is a place where you need to put a foundation, a lot of times I see land and there's granite everywhere. If there's granite everywhere, you may not be able to dig. Okay, and that's not the end of the world, but you want to know whether or not you can dig. It is the end of the world if you need to put a septic system in. If the only way you can get a septic system in is by blasting through the rock, it will be the most expensive septic system you have ever put in, and you will regret the day that you bought that land. I guarantee it. Slope. Simple thing like slope. You need to be able to get from the street to the property. There's a lot of land where there's an incredibly steep drop-off from the road in order to get down to the, or up to the buildable part of the property. You've got to figure out how to do that. If you go through a neighborhood, you will see oftentimes that builders don't tend to move the dirt around very much. So why don't they do that? It's expensive. You don't want to be in a particular parcel of land where you're going to have to move or add a lot of dirt because the costs are incredibly expensive. Okay, this isn't something that you normally want to do, at least not without understanding what the costs are, and we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. So, you want to check the public record. I know this sounds simple, but sometimes written right there on the public record is residential undevelopable land. And if it's marked undevelopable, it means the town's already looked at it and said you can't build here. Now that doesn't mean that you can't build there necessarily, because sometimes conditions can change over land, or you can buy another parcel and turn something that's not buildable into something that is buildable. But it's a huge red flag, and you need to be very cautious with anything that's already written up that way. Okay, mistake number 3, not protecting yourself. Okay, again, I see this all the time. People will make an offer to buy land, and it'll have conditions on it, and they'll get a note back from the seller that says, well, they want to close in 30 days, cash only deal, no conditions. Why would the seller want that? Why would the seller want a no condition deal? Well, first of all, it's good, but should you pay top dollar in order to meet those conditions? You should not, okay? If this land has any expense to it at all, by which I mean $50,000, $100,000 or more. I mean, there are some lots in Massachusetts, just regular old residential lots, not even talking about stuff that needs to be subdivided, that are in excess of $600,000, $800,000, even $1 million for those particular lots. If you're buying one of those lots, you absolutely need to protect yourself, anything in those price ranges, and you need to make sure that it's subject to the engineering that you need to do in order to get the building permit to do whatever it is that you want to do on the land. Okay? This is what you need to do. Okay? Give a deposit, go get the engineering done, make sure the town will let you do what it is that you want to do, then purchase the land. Okay? It's not that complicated, and you know what? This is going to tie up the land usually for a while. If you think it's going to be easy to get a building permit, I assure you it is not. This is going to be a 6-month or an 8-month process. And I have seen people buy land just because they don't want to wait around for the town, but you're going to have to wait around for them anyway. You might as well make sure that your money isn't at risk when you do that. Okay, mistake number 4, assuming that you can build whatever you want to build on that particular land. You cannot, folks. You cannot. All the land is zoned, and zoned land has allowed uses, and that's based on a zoning table. Now, that information is published in any town. Is it easy to read? It is not. If I throw a zoning table in front of most people, they will not really understand what it is telling them, especially for very specific uses. There's a lot of legal language that has been built up over the years about zoning codes, and honestly, it can be very difficult to decipher. If it says that it's zoned commercial, that may or may not mean that you can put a warehouse there, right? You would think warehouse is commercial, but some commercial is really retail commercial, and some commercial is industrial commercial. There's all different types of commercials and all different types of subzonings inside of those zonings. And to make things even more confusing, there are a lot of permitted uses that require a special permit. So if you see something and it says special permit required, that is not a green light. Okay? Special permits are usually only granted in rare cases. Okay? You need a good reason to get a special permit. And the reason isn't because I want to do this. Okay? Towns are generally not open to that discussion. I'm sure there are some towns that in some cases have granted special permits without much fuss. But that is not something I would tell you to expect, because it is the exception, not the rule. So definitely don't assume that you can get any kind of variance or any kind of special permit use just because you file the right paperwork with the town. You definitely should not assume that. Mistake number 5, and you knew it was coming, folks. You knew it was coming. Working within an experienced agent or no agent. I see people buy land all the time, and they've never talked to a real estate agent. The only agent they talk to, the listing agent. And as we talked about in slide number 1, you cannot trust this person all the way. They will tell you everything they know, but they may not know very much. Okay? It's not like a house. Now, the other part that people really need to understand is that most real estate agents don't sell a lot of land in Massachusetts. We just don't. There's not as much land to sell. There are a lot more houses and a lot more condos. And frankly, there's a lot more people looking for that stuff. So most of us tend to develop our expertise in those areas much quicker. But a lot of us don't do a whole lot of land deals. And if we do, we don't usually help developers cut them up and figure out, what the zoning says and what you can do for it and what kind of accept. There's a lot of agents that just aren't necessarily into that. As you can probably tell from the tenor of this conversation, that is something that I can definitely help you with. And one of the reasons why I do this video is to help people solve their problems when they're looking to buy something and reduce their risk. Okay? So if you're thinking about buying land and you think you need some help, this is the place that you want to call. Okay? So, but please, please, please do not go it alone. Do not assume that you can build whatever you want there. Do not assume that the town is going to help you. Do not assume that you can ask anyone who works at the town and they will simply let you know whether or not you can build it or not. And please, please, please do not rely on whatever the seller tells you can do or can't do. Land sales are final. This is not a toaster. You cannot return it and get your money back later. You must do your research up front. So be very, very careful when buying land or even looking at land. Okay, make sure that you do it the right way and you understand what the risks are before you take possession of the property. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll close out here with my typical close, and I hope to talk to you all in the next video.